Welcome to the deep dive. Usually when we sit down and prepare for these discussions, we are looking at, well, a single research paper or maybe a newly published book.
Right, something a bit more contained.
Exactly. But today, we are staring down a massive, frankly intimidating stack of highly confidential, patent-pending internal documents.
It is a lot of paper.
It really is.
Yeah.
We managed to get our hands on a pre-interview prep brief, an executive architecture summary, technical Q&A transcripts, and, some of the most complex block diagrams I have ever tried to decipher.
Oh yeah, those diagrams are intense.
They all belong to a cybersecurity company called DataSecured360, or DS360. And our mission today is to unpack this absolute mountain of technical data. We want to figure out how this company is attempting to fundamentally rewire how we protect, manage, and ultimately, let go of our private information.
Which is fascinating because if you just look at the sheer volume of these architecture schematics, you would assume the origin of this company was born in some sterile corporate boardroom, or perhaps like a government think tank or something.
Which makes the actual origin story hidden in these documents so wild. We have to start there because it completely frames the entire technical architecture we're about to discuss.
And it really does set the stage.
So, picture this scenario. This is straight from the founder's notes. A man is walking down the street with a friend. Out of nowhere, an attacker lunges.
Just a completely random act of violence.
Yeah. The man jumps in, he saves his friend, but he takes a knife to the gut. It is a catastrophic wound. He is bleeding out on the pavement. The paramedics are on the way, but the clock is ticking and, he knows it.
It's a terrifying situation.
Completely. As he lies there, fading, his friend leans in. He is absolutely distraught, tears in his eyes, and he asks, "What do you need? What is your final wish?"
And you anticipate something profoundly human in that moment, right? Like a message of love to his family or some philosophical realization about the nature of life.
But this guy, he looks his friend dead in the eye, gasps for air, and whispers, "Wipe my hard drive."
It really is the ultimate modern confession.
It is so dark.
It's dark, yeah. It is morbidly funny, but the reason it works as a joke is because it is just universally relatable.
Oh, absolutely.
We all have that sudden spike of anxiety when we think about someone going through our unlocked phone.
But it is more than just a joke to the founders of DS360. The documents note that this specific scenario rolled around in the founder's head for an entire year.
A whole year of just obsessing over that one concept.
Yeah. And we are going to explore how they took that very visceral, very human anxiety and engineered it into a serious enterprise-grade architecture.
Which is quite the leap.
Right. The goal here is to trace the path from that dying wish on the pavement to a system that completely separates your data from the authority to read it.
And that separation, that is the key to everything we're going to discuss today. Because when you stop laughing at the wipe my hard drive joke, you realize it is highlighting a massive structural vulnerability in how our digital society operates.
Like how we literally store our lives.
Exactly. Think about the reality of your life right now. You put your entire existence onto tiny silicon chips. Financial records, deeply private thoughts in your Notes app, sensitive medical histories.
Unsent emails, probably some embarrassing search queries.
Right, all of it. But the moment you lose physical or conscious control of that device, you lose control of your narrative.
Because the device doesn't know you're gone.
Exactly. Whether that loss of control happens through a medical crisis, a ransomware attack, a lost phone, or death, the current system simply decides what happens to your data based on default settings.
So let's unpack that, because reading through their core philosophy, it really felt like a paradigm shift to me. The documents repeatedly point out that our private data is scattered everywhere.
Everywhere.
You have files on your laptop, photos in iCloud, documents in Dropbox, spreadsheets in Microsoft 365. The fundamental problem DS360 is trying to solve isn't that we don't have enough passwords.
No, we have too many passwords.
Right. The problem is that our intent for that data is completely missing from the equation.
Intent is the critical missing ingredient in modern storage. Right now, your data is essentially dumb.
Dumb data.
Yes. It just sits on a server, passively waiting to be accessed by absolutely anyone who happens to present the right password or who possesses administrative privileges.
There's no nuance at all.
Zero nuance. Families, legal professionals, massive businesses, they all store mountains of data without any enforceable structural rules about what should happen when conditions inevitably change.
So DS360 is positioning itself as a control layer for private data.
That's the perfect way to phrase it. They want to allow your data to carry enforceable instructions. Protect this under these conditions. Release this to my spouse if I am incapacitated. Hide this if I am traveling.
Or going back to our opening story, make future decryption structurally impossible if I die.
Exactly.
I see how that bridges the gap. Which leads to the central thesis plastered all over these executive summaries. Their core mantra is, copying data does not copy authority.
That is the immovable foundation of their entire architecture. If you understand that one sentence, you understand the company.
Okay, I am going to push back on that, though.
Yeah.
Because when I first read that line, I immediately thought of a physical world analogy, and it didn't quite hold up for me.
Okay, let's hear it.
Let's say I have a highly secure, locked safe in my house. I put my diary inside. If a thief breaks into my house and steals the safe, they now possess the box.
Right.
They can drag it to an evil underground lair. They have unlimited time. They can use a crowbar. They can use an industrial blowtorch. They can hire the world's best safecracker. Don't they eventually get what is inside?
Given enough time, sure.
So how can DS360 claim that an attacker copying my encrypted data files doesn't ultimately give them authority over it?
Your intuition makes perfect sense based on how the physical world works, and honestly based on how the digital world used to work. But here is where the traditional locked box metaphor completely breaks down. In legacy IT systems, possessing the box and having administrative access to the room where the box sits inherently becomes the authority to open it. The cybersecurity industry calls this the God rights problem.
God rights. So if you are the IT administrator, you essentially have the master keys to the entire building and every drawer inside it.
Yes. If a hacker compromises an IT administrator's account at a major hospital, or if a rogue employee decides to go snooping through a law firm's servers, they can bypass the locks.
Just completely walk right past the security.
Because traditional systems rely on directory services, backup systems, storage arrays, and encryption keys, all living in the same basic software stack, one compromised admin credential becomes total, unimpeded control over the data.
Going back to the safe, it is like the hacker steals the safe, but because they hacked the admin, they also managed to steal the factory master blueprint of the lock mechanism at the exact same time.
That is a great way to look at it. What DS360 does is change the fundamental physics of the lock itself. With their system, the lock isn't just a static mathematical puzzle sitting on the file. The lock requires active, real-time cryptographic authority from a remote, heavily guarded source just to open for a single viewing.
Oh, wow.
So even if a hacker copies your encrypted files, what we call the ciphertext, they haven't stolen the right to decrypt them. They don't have your specific approved device hardware.
Right.
They don't have your biometric passkey. And they definitely don't have the back-end cryptographic authority to force the file open. The copied data is utterly mathematically useless without that live authority workflow.
That makes the technical ambition clear. But as I was reading the market entry strategy, I had a major disconnect.
What was the disconnect?
How does a company actually get regular people to adopt a complex three-plane cryptographic control layer? I mean, nobody wakes up on a Tuesday and says, you know what I really need? I need to install a real-time cryptographic authority architecture.
They absolutely do not. The founders are very aware of user fatigue, and that leads to a brilliant strategic move detailed in the business documents, a Trojan horse strategy.
The Trojan horse?
Yeah. They don't start by selling you complex data governance or encryption rules. Their market entry begins by giving you a free, highly polished, better-than-pay password vault.
I was so confused by that at first. The password manager market is incredibly saturated.
Very saturated.
We have massive players dominating that space. Why build another one and why give it away for free? But the prep brief explicitly states that passwords are not their revenue model.
Passwords are simply the daily engagement layer. Think about your own habits. How often do you open your password manager or rely on it to autofill?
Oh, I don't know, probably 10 times a day.
Right.
Logging into the bank, getting into a streaming service, checking work email.
Exactly. By providing a top-tier password vault for free, DS360 seamlessly embeds itself into your daily routine. But what they're actually doing, behind the scenes, is establishing an activity heartbeat.
An activity heartbeat. That completely clicked for me when I read it. Every time you open that vault to retrieve a password, you are proving to the DS360 system that you are alive, you are active, and you are still in control of your digital life.
It establishes a baseline of normalcy. It proves intent just by existing. And the genius of it is what happens when that heartbeat stops.
Right. The timer.
Yes. If you don't open the app for a week or a month, whatever threshold you personally set, the system immediately knows something has deviated from your normal pattern.
You might be hospitalized or in a crisis.
You might be incapacitated. That free password app acts as the essential timer. It paves the way for the paid features, triggering the automated rules you define for your private data.
So the free app gets you in the door, sets the invisible timer based on your natural habits, and then you pay for the automation of what happens when the timer goes off. Okay. Knowing that they want to completely separate the dumb data from the authority to read it, we have to transition into how they actually pull this off.
Right.
Because in the cybersecurity world, claiming you have eliminated the God rights problem,
It's a huge claim.
claiming that not even the system administrator can read the data, that is a massive, almost unbelievable claim. How do you build a system like that without accidentally creating a backdoor or a massive vulnerability?
That requires diving into the technical engine of the entire operation. The architecture documents refer to this as the three-plane architecture.
When I was staring at the block diagrams for these three planes, I realized I desperately needed a real-world analogy to wrap my head around the mechanics. So let us build one. Imagine you were trying to access a highly secure safety deposit box, but in a futuristic, somewhat paranoid bank.
I like this approach. Let's map it out.
Okay, plane one. Let's call plane one the front desk clerk. You walk into the lobby, and this clerk greets you. They know your name, they know what subscription tier you pay for, and they understand that you want to open your specific box. In the DS360 app, Plane 1 handles all the customer-facing elements. It manages the user interface, it processes the billing, and it even hosts a feature they call Concierge AI.
We should pause on the Concierge AI, actually, because whenever investors or privacy advocates hear the letters AI mixed with private data, alarm bells just go off.
Yeah, people get very nervous.
Very nervous. But the technical Q&A is very firm on this point. This AI only exists to guide the user on how to set up complex rules. It has absolutely zero access to the protected content, the provider credentials, or any plain text data. It is a helpful guide in the lobby, not a guard with a key.
That makes sense. So the front desk clerk, plane 1, captures your human intent. You say, I want to read my 2024 tax return. The clerk converts that human request into a machine-readable operation payload.
Yes.
But crucially, the clerk has absolutely no keys. They cannot open the vault themselves. They can only package your request and pass it down the hallway to the next layer.
Which introduces plane 2 to our bank analogy.
All right, so plane 2. Let's make plane 2 the strict security bouncer standing at a checkpoint further down the hall.
A completely uncompromising bouncer. Plane 2 is officially called the entitlement gate. Notice that this bouncer does not look at the actual data either.
Just the context.
Plane 2 looks entirely at the context of your request. It runs through a rigorous automated checklist. First, it validates your biometric passkey. Then it checks your device proof.
Wait, expand on device proof. Does that mean if I buy a new laptop while traveling in Paris and try to log in, the bouncer reacts differently?
Significantly differently. The bouncer checks cryptographic signatures to ensure you are asking for this data on your pre-registered approved hardware.
Oh, wow.
If you attempt it from an unknown device in Paris, it flags the request. It also checks your subscription status. It checks the timers we discussed earlier. It even checks the kill switch state, which is a fail-safe we will explore later.
That is a massive checklist for every single file opening.
It is. And the most vital technical detail here is how you reach plane 2. It is reached only through automated workload identities.
What does that mean in practical terms? Like for a normal user?
It means there are no human administrators logging into plane 2 to manually approve or review things. A workload identity is a machine-to-machine authentication method. The system manages the connection without a human-readable password or a shared secret that a human could steal.
So no one can just guess the password.
Exactly. Furthermore, if absolutely anything on the bouncer's checklist is wrong, if the timing is suspicious, if the device isn't cryptographically verified, if a policy state is mismatched, plane 2 operates on a principle of failing closed.
Failing closed, as opposed to trying to find a workaround.
Right. It doesn't try to route around the problem. It doesn't ask for a supervisor override. It just drops the request immediately. The door shuts.
Okay, so the clerk in plane 1 takes the request. The bouncer in plane 2 verifies you are absolutely who you say you are, using the right device at the right time.
Right.
If the bouncer approves, they issue a very short-lived, highly specific approval ticket. And they slide that ticket under the door to plane 3. Now, what is Plane 3? Is that the vault itself?
Not quite the vault, but the authority to open it. Think of Plane 3 as a blindfolded vault manager sitting in an isolated room.
Blindfolded manager. I like that.
They never see the gold, they don't know who you are, they just turn the master key when the bouncer slides the ticket under the door. Plane 3 is the execution and authority layer. It runs entirely in what the industry calls confidential compute.
Okay, I need a translation on confidential compute.
Yeah.
What makes computing confidential?
Well, when you rent a server from a massive cloud provider like Microsoft Azure or Amazon Web Services, you are trusting their infrastructure. Confidential compute is like a highly fortified black box inside Microsoft's own servers.
Yeah.
Microsoft provides the electricity, the cooling, and the physical room, but the data is encrypted even while it is being processed in memory. Even Microsoft's highest level, God-tier engineers cannot look inside that black box while the code is running.
That is intense. And the documents state that inside this black box, Plane 3 uses a FIPS 143 Level 3 managed HSM.
Let's break down that alphabet soup because it is where the most hardcore cybersecurity engineering resides. FIPS stands for Federal Information Processing Standards. It is the U.S. government benchmark for cryptographic modules. Level 3 is an incredibly high standard.
What makes it Level 3 versus, say, Level 1?
Level 1 is basically software-level encryption. Level 3 requires robust physical tamper resistance mechanisms.
Physical tamper resistance.
Yeah. If a sophisticated attacker somehow gained physical access to the server rack and tried to pry the hardware open or manipulate the voltage or alter the temperature to extract data, the hardware detects the physical intrusion and instantly zeroes out, destroys all the cryptographic keys inside it.
Wow, it self-destructs the keys.
Yes. HSM stands for Hardware Security Module. It is a dedicated, hardened physical piece of hardware whose sole purpose in the universe is to safeguard keys.
So it is literally a physical microvault inside the cloud infrastructure.
Exactly that. And in this architecture, they utilize Azure Key Vault's infrastructure. But the crucial phrase in the technical Q&A is non-exportable.
Non-exportable.
The authority keys never leave that hardware module, ever. Plane 3 performs the authority side of a two-party unwrap operation.
Two-party wrap. What does that mean?
Your physical device, your laptop or phone, has one part of the key hidden in its own secure hardware. The cloud HSM has the other part. They have to work together mathematically to decrypt the data.
But hold on, you called Plane 3 the blindfolded manager. If Plane 3 is unlocking the data, how does it know what it is unlocking without actually looking at the file or the user?
This is perhaps the most elegant piece of engineering in the entire stack. Plane 3 uses what they call state-only SQL and opaque IDs.
Opaque IDs.
When the approved ticket from the bouncer reaches Plane 3, it doesn't contain a command like, hey, decrypt John Doe's 2024 tax return PDF.
Because if it did, an attacker monitoring the system would immediately know the business meaning in the target.
Precisely. Instead, Plane 3 receives a string of absolute gibberish, an opaque identifier, something like folder context ID 7A9B4.
Okay.
Plane 3 does not know who John Doe is. It does not know the file is a tax return. It doesn't even know where the file is physically stored. It literally only knows that Plane 2 approved an operation for ID 7A9B4, and it checks its own internal state database to ensure the lifecycle rules allow it to participate in the decryption.
Think about the implications of that. That means even if a cloud administrator at Microsoft Azure or a rogue engineer at DS360 decides they want to snoop through your files, they structurally cannot.
They cannot, because there is no human key use path.
Right.
A human admin cannot type a command to force the managed HSM to spit out the plaintext keys. They don't possess your physical laptop, so they can't complete the two-party unwrap anyway.
It's mathematically impossible.
And even if they dumped the entire Plane 3 database and stared at it, all they would see is a massive list of opaque IDs and state markers. They wouldn't know which ID belongs to which user or which ID corresponds to a medical record versus a grocery list. DS360 has architected a system where they mathematically cannot be coerced, even by their own staff, into reading your data.
Okay, so we have this incredibly secure, multi-layered backend that separates intent, authorization, and cryptographic authority. But logically, that raises an immediate question for the user. If DS360 is just the intricate lock and the authority mechanism, where's the physical box? Where do the actual files live?
This leads directly into their BioOS model.
BioOS, bring your own storage.
Yes, bring your own storage.
The documents make it very clear. DS360 explicitly does not want to be a storage company. You keep your OneDrive, your Google Drive, your Dropbox, or even just your local hard drive.
This is a massive selling point, especially for professionals or small businesses. Nobody wants the headache of migrating terabytes of sensitive data to a brand new, unproven platform.
It's a nightmare to migrate.
Exactly. The way BIOS works is that the DS360 application encrypts your files locally on your approved device. It leverages the secure enclave on your Mac or the TPM, the Trusted Platform Module chip on your Windows machine to handle the heavy lifting of the device-bound key material.
Let's clarify what a TPM or secure enclave does, because a lot of people just think of their computer as one big brain.
A TPM or secure enclave is essentially a separate, tiny, highly secure computer living inside your main computer. It has its own memory and processor.
Like a vault inside the computer.
Yes. Even if your main operating system gets infected with a virus, that virus cannot reach inside the TPM to steal the keys. So your file is encrypted by this secure subsystem, turning it into a locked ciphertext package before it ever leaves your computer.
And then you just drop that locked package into your normal Dropbox folder. Dropbox syncs it to the cloud like any other file, but Dropbox's servers only see mathematical gibberish.
That is the beauty of it. And more importantly, the backend authority, our blindfolded manager in Plane 3, never sees your plaintext files, and it never asks for your cloud storage passwords or access tokens.
Oh, interesting.
DS360 doesn't log into your Google Drive to fetch your files. The app running locally on your laptop does that, using the access you have already natively granted it.
It sounds seamless, but as I read the Q&A document, I found a crucial limitation that genuinely made me pause.
What was that?
I put myself in the shoes of a user. If I am on a long flight without Wi-Fi, and I want to open an encrypted document that I already downloaded to my laptop's hard drive, the documents state that I intentionally cannot access it. It fails.
It does fail, yes.
Isn't that incredibly frustrating from a user experience standpoint? I mean, I have the file right there.
It absolutely causes friction. But when you look at the architecture holistically, it is a deliberate, necessary security trade-off. The interviewer in the internal Q&A pushed the founders on this exact point.
How do they defend breaking offline access?
They explained that to allow offline access, the system would have to cache or temporarily store the decryption capability locally on the laptop, completely bypassing the live check with Plane 2 and Plane 3. If they allow that, the laptop suddenly becomes a single point of failure.
If someone steals my laptop out of my bag at the airport and keeps it offline, they wouldn't have to deal with the bouncer or the blindfolded manager.
Exactly. Their attacker would have everything they need right there on the hardware to eventually brute force or extract the data. By mandating a live connection, DS360 ensures that the bouncer in Plane 2 can always check the current real-time state of affairs before allowing access.
So it checks the context right in that exact moment.
Is the kill switch currently activated because you reported the laptop stolen an hour ago? Has the subscription lapsed?
Yeah.
Is this request happening at 3 a.m. from a suspicious IP address? If the device is offline, it cannot verify your real-time intent with the back-end authority.
Therefore, the architecture dictates that it must fail closed.
The data remains locked. The founders made a hard philosophical choice not to become a local key cache. It is a pure, just-in-time, local decrypt model.
It's a fascinating look at the actual compromises required for true security. You can't have ultimate protection and ultimate convenience simultaneously.
You really can't.
But dealing with cloud storage like Dropbox or OneDrive brings up another everyday nightmare: sync conflicts.
Oh, everyone hates sync conflicts.
We've all experienced this. You edit a spreadsheet on your laptop, a coworker edits it on their desktop, and suddenly Dropbox panics and creates a file called conflicted copy 1. What happens when the file in question is an encrypted blob of gibberish? Does the DS360 system just blindly merge the two sets of gibberish?
If it attempted to merge encrypted data, it would permanently corrupt the entire file. This is where their tamper detection mechanisms come into play. The Q&A goes quite deep into this. When the local app encrypts a file, it doesn't merely scramble the text.
What else does it do?
It constructs a package header, a manifest, and attaches integrity tags, specifically using AEAD, which stands for Authenticated Encryption with Associated Data.
I read that acronym. How does AEAD actually work in practice?
Think of it as placing an intricate, mathematically verifiable wax seal on an envelope. The AEAD tags don't just protect the secrecy of the data, they protect the authenticity. When you try to open the file later, the app first inspects that mathematical wax seal.
Okay.
It asks, do the headers match the data? Does the manifest line up perfectly with the encrypted segments?
So if a hacker intercepts the file and flips even a single byte of data just to mess with you, what happens?
The mathematics of the AEAD tag will fail to compute. The app will immediately recognize the tampering and refuse to decrypt the file. It fails, closed. The same applies to a sync conflict. If Dropbox presents a mismatched, conflicted version of the file, the integrity tags won't align with the expected state. The system will never silently merge or overwrite your data with an untrusted version. It preserves the integrity of the original state and forces you to address the conflicts securely.
Okay, so we have established how everyday storage is secured. We understand the planes, the hardware, and the strict rules governing access. Now, let's circle back to that opening story, the guy on the pavement.
Right, the heartbeat stopping.
Exactly. What actually happens when that daily heartbeat from the free password app finally stops beating?
This brings us to the core of their advanced features, detailed in Section 4, Automating the End. Specifically, the features trademarked as Final Act and True Wipe.
Let's tackle Final Act first. This is their digital estate feature. It is a paid tier that allows users to predefine exactly what happens to their instructions, secure messages, or protected data if they become permanently inactive.
Look at the problem this attempts to solve. How do people manage digital estates today? They write passwords into a physical will, or they keep a hidden spreadsheet in a desk drawer, or they just give their master password to a trusted spouse.
Which is pretty common.
It is common, but digital lives are incredibly fluid. Passwords rotate, storage locations migrate, two-factor authentication gets added. A static spreadsheet hidden in a drawer is usually outdated a month after you print it.
And if you have two-factor authentication tied to your phone and your phone is locked or destroyed in an accident, having this spreadsheet doesn't even help your family.
Exactly. Final Act replaces that static model with dynamic automation. You set a timer. Let's say you choose a 30-day inactivity threshold.
Okay.
If your heartbeat, your interactions with the password vault stops for 30 days, the system springs into action. First, it doesn't just hand over your data, it attempts to contact you. It sends warnings to your backup emails or devices saying, "Action required, are you there?"
And if those warnings go unanswered, the system checks the kill switch status.
The kill switch is a vital failsafe for the living. Imagine you didn't die, you just lost your phone while trekking in a remote area and went off the grid for 5 weeks.
Just totally disconnected.
When you finally get to an internet cafe, you can hit the kill switch from a web interface to immediately halt any pending Final Act executions.
But assuming there is no kill switch triggered, the system moves to the final phase. It sends a secure claim link to your pre-designated recipient. Notably, it doesn't send the files themselves, just the link.
What, just the authority path?
The recipient has to download the DS360 app, prove their identity, and register their own physical device hardware. Only then does Plane 3, our blindfolded manager, release the decrypt authority to the recipient's device.
And here is a critical, fascinating legal question raised by the interviewer in the prep brief. Can DS360 be subpoenaed for this data during a bitter estate dispute?
I read that paragraph 3 times. The implications are staggering.
It showcases the legal brilliance of the architecture. The founders state, unequivocally, DS360 is non-compellable.
Let's visualize that. A lawyer for a disgruntled family member walks into a courtroom, gets a judge to sign a subpoena, and serves it to DS360's corporate headquarters, demanding the deceased person's files.
The company's legal response would essentially be, we cannot comply because math prevents us from doing so.
Math prevents them.
They literally do not have the data. They don't store the files, they don't know where the files are located on the user's personal Dropbox, and they don't have the complete keys to unwrap the ciphertext because of the two-party HSM model. The decryption requires the approved physical device, which DS360 does not possess.
The expert in the document compares this process to a life insurance beneficiary.
It is a very apt comparison. A physical will might say one thing about who gets the estate, but if a life insurance policy explicitly names a specific beneficiary, the money goes to them, bypassing probate.
Wow. Okay.
Final Act transfers the cryptographic authority directly to the recipient. If an excluded family member wants to sue for access, they have to sue the recipient directly. DS360 has no technical ability to act as a backdoor, even under a court order.
That is wild. It creates a cryptographic reality that supersedes traditional legal demands. But what if you don't want anyone to inherit the data? What if you are the guy bleeding on the pavement saying, "Wipe my hard drive"?
Then you don't configure a recipient, you configure true wipe.
True wipe. The documents describe this as cryptographic finality. And the host brief explicitly instructs us to challenge this concept. How is true wipe fundamentally different from just selecting a file, hitting the delete key, and emptying the recycle bin?
We need to explain how storage actually works.
Yeah.
When you hit the delete key on your computer, you aren't actually erasing the file. You are simply removing the pointer in the file system directory.
You're deleting the map to the file.
You're deleting the map, exactly. The data itself is usually still sitting there on the physical disk until the computer eventually overwrites it with new data. Even if you use secure delete tools, they just overwrite the local sectors with random noise. True wipe operates on a completely different paradigm.
Because true wipe isn't trying to destroy the hard drive, it is destroying the authority.
Yes. When true wipe is triggered, again, after the timers expire and warnings go unanswered, it enters a terminal state in plane 3.
The blindfolded manager marks the file as forever off limits.
Plane 3 updates its state-only SQL database, changing the status of your specific opaque IDs to a terminal wiped state. Furthermore, the HSM destroys its half of the key material associated with those IDs.
The actual physical chip destroys its half of the key.
From that millisecond forward, Plane 3 will never authorize a decryption request for that data again. The ciphertext might still be sitting in your Google Drive. It might have been copied by a hacker. It might be backed up on 10 different external hard drives.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. The other half of the key mathematically required to read it no longer exists in the universe. The data is forever unreadable.
It is completely permanently severed from human access. Okay, so we see how this architecture works flawlessly for a single individual's privacy or digital afterlife. But how does a system this rigorous scale up?
That is the big question.
Section 5 of the documents transitions from personal use to solving the massive, multi-billion-dollar ransomware problem for businesses.
Scaling up is where the commercial viability of DS360 becomes apparent. The documents detail two distinct enterprise phases: professional data drops and commercial recovery.
Let's start with the professional app. This tier is explicitly targeted at small offices. Think of independent law firms, private medical practices, dental offices, boutique accounting firms. These are businesses that handle incredibly sensitive client data, but they absolutely do not have the budget to hire a dedicated enterprise security team.
And importantly, these businesses already have established software stacks they rely on daily. A dental office relies on Dentrix. A law firm uses Clio. An accounting firm uses QuickBooks.
You can't just tell them to stop using those.
Right. DS360 recognized a fundamental truth about software adoption. If you force these small businesses to abandon their entire established workflow to learn a brand new, highly secure platform, no one will buy it. It causes too much operational disruption.
So instead of trying to replace the tools, DS360 decided to protect the data around the tools. They introduced a concept called data drops. I love the simplicity of this. Think of a data drop as a magic folder sitting on your desktop.
It entirely removes the complexity of cryptography from the staff's daily tasks. A receptionist at a dental clinic doesn't need to understand TPM chips or opaque IDs.
No, definitely not.
They just drag a patient's medical record into the designated folder on their screen.
And the moment the file drops in, the DS360 rules instantly take over. The agent running silently in the background encrypts the file locally, tags it with a confidential policy, and applies a rigid rule. This file can only be released if the office owner's biometric passkey authorizes it.
And then the resulting ciphertext is saved to the firm's existing Dropbox or local server.
Now let's look at why this simple workflow is absolutely devastating to a ransomware attacker. If you think about how a typical ransomware attack unfolds, an attacker breaches a network, usually through a phishing email. They find all the valuable files, and they employ a double extortion tactic.
The double extortion, yeah.
They encrypt the files and demand money for the key, and they simultaneously steal the files and threaten to leak them onto the dark web if you don't pay.
Think about the panic in a dental office if they see patient records being held hostage on their screens.
But if that office is using DS360 Professional,
the attacker gets nothing of value. If the attacker steals the BIOS storage, the Dropbox folders, or the local server drives, they are stealing ciphertext. They are stealing mathematically sound encrypted blobs. They do not get the readable patient records.
An attacker might say, fine, I'll just compromise the IT administrator's account and gain root access to the network.
It still doesn't matter. Remember the fundamental premise we started with. Copying data does not copy authority, and admin access does not equal data authority.
Oh, right.
Even if the attacker achieves total administrative control over the office network, they do not possess the approved registered device hardware. They don't have the office owner's biometric passkey. They cannot complete the authorization path because Plane 2 will reject the request and Plane 3 will refuse to participate. The attacker is left holding a locked box without the mechanism to even ask for the key.
It completely defangs the threat of a data leak.
Yeah.
Because the stolen data can't be read. But what about the operational disruption side of ransomware?
What do you mean?
What if the attacker, realizing they can't read the files, just deletes or corrupts the ciphertext out of spite to shut the business down?
That malicious destruction leads us to commercial phase 2, which the architecture documents describe as immutable recovery. This is the future enterprise-grade tier they are building toward.
Right now, for personal and small business use, they rely on BuyYS, bring your own storage. But for this enterprise tier, they replace standard cloud storage with worm storage. Write once, read many.
Worm storage is a specialized storage architecture. Once data is written to a worm drive, it is cryptographically locked at the storage level. It can never be modified, overwritten, or deleted by anyone, not even the system administrator, for a legally defined retention period.
Oh, okay.
But DS360 adds custom layers to this concept that make it uniquely powerful against modern threats. They introduce a component called the Package Header Inspector.
Like a bouncer for the storage array itself?
Yes. Before a ciphertext package is even allowed to be written into the immutable vault, Plane 1 inspects it. It checks the signature, verifies the format, and confirms the integrity tags we discussed earlier.
So it scans before saving.
Exactly. If an attacker has tampered with the encrypted blob or tried to inject malicious code into the wrapper, the system immediately rejects it. It goes straight into quarantine and never pollutes the clean, immutable backups.
Okay, so the data is safe and unalterable. But when a massive company actually needs to recover from a disaster, say their entire primary network was wiped out, they don't just log in and click a Restore All button. The documents detail a process called a 2 of 3 cipher key quorum.
This is where we see true enterprise-grade governance. A single IT person cannot authorize a massive data restoration because that person could be compromised. The customer organization holds 3 physical cryptographic keys, likely stored in physical, geographically separated off-site safes.
So they're spread out.
To authorize a massive enterprise restore operation, 2 of those 3 physical keys must be physically presented and verified to authorize the workflow.
It's like the nuclear launch codes. 2 people have to turn the key at the exact same time.
Exactly. It requires physical, multi-party consensus. And even after that quorum is met, the system doesn't just blindly overwrite the production servers with the restored data.
Where does it go?
The data is written to an isolated staging workspace. This allows the customer security team to thoroughly verify the integrity of the data before bringing the company back online. They ensure they are restoring verified, clean data, not a dormant version of the attacker's malware.
Okay, let's step back and look at the whole picture of what we have unpacked today. We started with a guy bleeding on the pavement, cracking a desperate joke about his search history.
A very memorable start.
And from that morbidly funny, deeply human dying wish, DS360 has architected a 3-plane technical marvel. They have figured out how to strip the danger out of cloud storage by structurally, mathematically severing the data from the authority to read it.
They've created a framework where your intent survives your ability to enforce it. Whether it is a family seamlessly managing a digital estate through Final Act, a small law firm protecting client files with data drops without disrupting their workflow, or a massive enterprise fending off ransomware through immutable recovery, the underlying principle remains the exact same.
We finally have a mechanism to enforce our rules on our data when we no longer can. Copying the data does not copy the authority.
Taking all of that into account, thinking about true wipe and this looming reality of cryptographic finality, it raises a profound philosophical question, something not explicitly found in these engineering diagrams, but an undeniable consequence of the technology they are building.
Think about the implications of that. What kind of consequence?
Well, if true wipe and cryptographic finality actually become the global standard for private data management, what happens to our history?
Oh, wow.
For centuries, historians, biographers, and sociologists have relied entirely on finding the unsecured things people left behind. The physical diaries locked in old desks, the unsent letters hidden in attics, the forgotten archives of daily life.
That's how we know the past.
That is how we piece together the authentic human story, not just the sanitized public record. But if our digital lives, our modern diaries and correspondence, are now structurally programmed to turn into unreadable mathematical dust the moment our heartbeat stops, are we intentionally creating a future with a perfectly secure present, but an entirely erased past.
That is a chilling thought to end on. A perfectly secure present, but an entirely erased past. We finally get our dying wish to wipe our hard drives, but the ultimate cost might be our own history. Something for you to mull over the next time you save a file. Until next time, thanks for taking the deep dive.